Recording already. Your one job.
Got one job. There you go.
Good. I'll start again so we don't have a job dispute, or what they call that, a demarcation thing. So I had this thing this morning about the kaleidoscope, and with lesson 10 that you guys just read, my thoughts don't mean anything, right? One of the things that I come across a lot, because I've been doing this for a fair while now, and some of you guys also, one of the things I come across a lot when I do a group, or there's new students or someone who's perhaps never heard of the course or anything like that, is there's a kind of an obligation that goes along with giving someone a copy of the course or introducing them to a spiritual path, is that there's an inherent willingness to try and represent it as best you can throughout, right? So it's not like you just give it and like, see you later, alligator. I mean, maybe that's the case, but if there's a relationship, I mean, obviously there's a relationship in everything, but if there's a relationship, you want to try and be useful within that relationship, like Jesus says, to bring you both to the same level where you kind of don't need each other anymore, right? So at the start of a relationship, one always has more, one always has less, and the miracle sort of brings that to, and then the relationship finishes and then the next thing goes on. But one of the things I find in those relationships, and it's like finger on my nose, is always thinking that when you read that lesson 10, my thoughts don't mean anything, because most people come to the course quite shell-shocked with the world and discouraged and everything like that. They tend to equate that lesson with their horrible thoughts and their thoughts that are plaguing them about the situations that have driven them to finding God, right? Which can be quite prolific for some people. But Jesus is talking in that lesson very clearly about every thought that I think, every single one, including my happy thoughts. And we went through that last time, why happy thoughts and sad thoughts are the same, because they're dualistic and it's the same, one side of the coin to the other. So in the kaleidoscope, right, the idea of the kaleidoscope is the same thing. I like the analogy that I'm caught in a kaleidoscope. I'm looking at the big mirror there, and every time I think something, the kaleidoscope changes at the other end, right? I'm trying to get back. This is a basic idea. I'm trying to get back to my original idea, to the place where just before the kaleidoscope appeared, right? So the idea of the tiny mad idea, it didn't happen in time and space. It happened into eternity, where all is one, crept a tiny mad idea. It happened in the mind of Christ, in the Christ mind, right? Or in God's Son, in the mind of God's Son, as an idea of separation. There's a God and there's a me. So I'm trying to find that place, because this is a return, right? Time's now going backwards. It's trying to find, I have that original thought, which, because of the resurrection, of course, it won't be there. Jesus has already atoned for it. In the moment that I find it where it's not there, right, which means I'm actually unable to see it, I will disappear along with it, because I was a product of it. Does that make sense? I, as in the separate, the avatar, the physical nature of myself. But what happens is, because Jesus has already atoned, every time I have a thought, no, that's not it. It's not that thought. Or maybe it's this thought or whatever. And you're looking in your thoughts and the thing's changing. It's changed so many times you can't remember what the very first one you saw was. And it's like doing a Rubik's Cube. You muck it up a few times and it's like, hang on, if I can just backtrack, I'll get back to where it was perfect. Right? But you can't. It's impossible. You can't remember it. And so you go on and on and on, trying to do this kaleidoscope and get it to look like exactly how it was before you mucked it up, right? The very first thing, and then just before that, right? So it's like that jump off point, or that alpha point, or the alpha and the omega. The omega point, of course, would be the maximum amount of moves you can make in the kaleidoscope before the pattern restarts again, right? So you can either go back to the alpha or forward to the omega. And I was watching this incredible show yesterday on Infinity on Netflix. It's called something with infinity or towards infinity or forever infinity. Anyway, something infinity. And there was a guy on there explaining about infinite universes and parallel universes and all this sort of stuff. And I don't want to get too far into that because it's kind of like it's a little bit beyond our pay grade, including mine. But the thing of the kaleidoscope was in there as potential, as the amount of potential contained within each person's mind to be able to recognize infinity. Right, so it's like, how would I know it if I even recognize, if it even stood in front of me? Would I know it? Am I infinity now? Right? Is what I'm seeing in the world the maximum amount of potential of different scenarios that I can manifest? Right? But what happens is, and it always is, it's always total. Right? Time and but as above, so below, because God is whole and complete. So on earth, my potential must be always at its total max point. All I'm ever doing is changing what I want it to look like. Right? So when Jesus says, be still and know that I am God, every little change that I make in my kaleidoscope is me refusing to be still, thinking I can do it on my own terms, which is why I have lesson 10. Right? But somewhere in the mind, we have this conscious level, and then we have, pardon me, the Christ level. The Christ level already knows what perfection is. The Christ level is already fully aware of its state. Right? I'm trying to connect the two things, the conscious and the Christ level. I'm trying to clear that channel out and re-establish communication. I can only do that by being still, which is why none of my thoughts mean anything. And I have to be still in this, Francois. I have to be still in this moment and allow that opening to occur in my mind like that and communication to be restored. Right? Constantly looking at the construct, constantly looking at the kaleidoscope, trying to find something that's familiar, trying to find something that represents God is pointless because the whole thing's designed to deny God. I can only see the representation of God in it by my understanding that it denies God, okay? So by its denial of God, therefore it represents it. It's implicit. So it doesn't matter what I'm looking at, the good or the bad. It's still representing God by its denial. All right? That's only me being the witness. Right? Now, when I begin A Course in Miracles and I start going through changes, I will also see God represented through, how would I put this? Through the power of my choice, through the power of utilizing choice, in deferral to a higher authority, let's say, right? Because we don't know what the Holy Spirit is. It's the Spirit of holiness. What even is that? I don't know. It's just something I read in a book, right? It's just an idea that you can put some belief into because you want to. I really want to believe in that. I'm going to start doing stuff that represents that and see what happens, right? And hopefully have a leap of faith and boom, right? So you have these little leaps of faith, right? Which is essential. If that lesson 10, if you're still trying to work it out in your thinking, you're not using faith. Faith is taking on board lesson 10 for what it truly means. It means that none of my thoughts mean a damn thing. Therefore, why would I attempt to use them to try and navigate my experience, of the human world? It's pointless. All those thoughts is a cacophony of noises in my mind that I've become addicted to listening to. That's it. I'm perfectly capable of navigating my world throughout the day without listening to any of those thoughts with a perfectly peaceful and calm mind. And the ego would be like, how are you going to do that without any thoughts? Because it's your thoughts that tell you where you are and what you are and all this sort of stuff. It's like, just try it. The ego is going to threaten you and make things worse and increase the pressure and talk louder and all this sort of stuff. The more you try to drop your allegiance to listening to it. Right? But you do not need to listen to it. Lesson 10, my thoughts don't mean anything. If they don't mean anything, why would I listen to them? Why would I continue to give them any value at all? Let me just drop all those thoughts off, refuse to listen to them, right? You have to refuse. You got to like really, boom. You have to be assertive and step up on this, right? I'm going to refuse to listen to those thoughts, and I'm going to allow something else to happen that's not of my own making to get me through the day. Now that's faith. You're putting faith in a higher power and you're leaving it up to God to tell you what to do and how to get there and all that sort of stuff. And you watch what happens. You'll be completely surprised, because there is no lack in God. There is no void. There is no emptiness and no space where God doesn't exist. It's only the false belief that I think I'm separate from God, which is perpetuated by constantly listening to and reacting to the thoughts, changing the kaleidoscope, that keeps me ignorant of God's presence in my life. Right? It's as simple as that. I'm not going to listen to those thoughts in my head today. It's that simple. Let something else happen. Now, what happens is, in the letting of something else happen, I begin to get an internal awareness of that something else, right? Maybe not the first time. Maybe I take a leap of faith and I'm praying, Father, I've got a job interview today and I'm not prepared, or whatever the situation is, it doesn't matter. And I need a miracle. Whether you get the job or don't get the job, have no investment in your prayer, right? Just simply ask. Open the door to receive and simply ask. And you'll be like, wow, I got the job. Everything went fine. All the things I was worried about never happened. That was a miracle, right? Whatever a miracle is to you, you always are answered in your prayer in a way that you can see it and accept it and understand it, even through the symbology, right? It wouldn't make sense if God answered you and you had no clue what his answer was, which is, it's a funny thing. I wrote a post about that this morning at some ungodly hour of the morning. All hours are ungodly. And then what happens is you have these little moments of realizing that, you know, and you'll doubt it at first, because that's the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is rooted in denial, right? And at first you'll doubt it and you'll be like, yeah, was that really a miracle or was it just luck? You know, and you have to choose. You have to choose. You'll have this voice saying, and you'll be like, I'm not going to listen to either of those things. That was a miracle. To me, that was a miracle. And you choose for the miracle, right? You're always choosing for God, even though you have not yet remembered God, or maybe you have and you're trying to purify your mind, you know, and all this sort of stuff like me. But, and then you'll go on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. All of these little things build up witness. You'll have things that you'll call synchronicity. You'll have things that you call deja vu and all this sort of stuff. And maybe some phenomena will show up and you'll begin to build these synapses, right? You know what synapses are, Francois? Right. So synapses, right? You'll begin to build synapse points or connections in your thinking, which will be your thinking, right? It'll be miraculous thinking. So the Course comes along and it takes the place of your old thinking and gives you a new way to think about yourself, right? You'll begin to think about yourself in that way, so that it's, oh yeah, that must be because I was practicing miracle mindedness, and it'll get stronger and stronger. And your own internal witness, your own internal voice will begin to develop for God, and you'll begin to notice it more and more, to the point where it starts to drive you crazy, wanting to know God. Right? You'll have, and I know in those things that you wrote to me, it's like, I really want God and all this stuff. Like, I can tell you in your heart space, man, you're there, you want God. Like, and I don't want to try and put that fire out with the idea of purification. I mean, purification is necessary too, but it's like, listen to your heart, right? I know that when, say, I don't know how to talk about this bit particularly because it's individual to me, I think, but you might relate to it. But when I had my enlightenment occurred in 1997, right? I didn't know it was going to happen. It just happened. I walked into a room and I had the thought not to judge what was going on, and boom, the whole world vanished, right? And I was in a whole nother, I was back in eternity. After that, when I found myself back with a vessel and everything and realized that I just literally left the continuum, had a full-on thing. I was so high as a kite, right? I was so ecstatic. I couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't stop wanting to hug people. I wanted to tear off all my clothes and just run into town, go, woo! And like nothing applied to me anymore, right? Nothing in the world applied to me anymore in my own sense of myself. It was like all of a sudden, the word freedom doesn't even cover it. The word freedom is something that humans have because they have this idea of being not free. This was beyond even that, right? It's like I don't know how to talk about it. And what happened was, because I was at a healing center where it happened, and somewhere there was this recognition I should be there because those guys were like me, right? Two fingers. And they were all doing Course in Miracles and stuff. But it was presented to me that I had to now purify my mind, use the Course to purify my mind so that I wouldn't waste what had been given me, and so that I could integrate the principles of transformation for myself and become a teacher for others, right? And the old man, like master teacher, presented it through TED to me that I was to become a teacher of teachers. And in a sense, that took the woohoo off my experience, right? It was like all of a sudden I had to study and study hard and study quick before my ego, and I could see what my ego was doing, right? It's like adding octane fuel to a very old car. It's likely to blow up the engine. And I could see what was going on, and I reluctantly surrendered to mind training. And I spent every day for the next 6 years with my teacher, Ted, 6 days a week, and like literally almost all day and into the night sitting with him and listening and doing other stuff, workshops and things. But it took a lot of that woohoo out of me, okay, and gave me something else. For you, you've got a lot of passion for God. You want to know God. Now, there's two paths to enlightenment. One is through purification, and somewhere you have the experience along the way or at the end or whatever, right? And that's individual also. Or there's the dark night of the soul where you crave God so much. It doesn't matter about purification. You crave for God and understanding so much that you're ready to kill yourself if it doesn't happen, that you're done with the world and you just can't go on, right? Now, I see both things. When you write to me, I see both things in your writing. I see a willingness for you to train the mind, but I also see that passion for God, all right? I don't want, and right, and this is, I don't know how to talk about this because it's not my experience, but this is yours. I'm just going to give it to you and see if it sits with you anywhere. I don't want your mind training to dampen down your passion for God, like mind training did dampen down my after God. Okay? So don't think that this internal urge and this internal passion for God is something that you have to get away from, right? Because I know it tears you up inside, because that's how I was in the dark night of my soul. It tore me up inside so much that if I didn't find God that night, I was going to kill myself. And I knew I meant it. That was it. I'd tried before and failed, but I meant it, right? But literally that passion, forget what the ego tries to tell you, right? The ego is going to say, oh, you'll never find God. You may as well just kill yourself. And don't listen to that side of it. Just stay in the pure passion for God, right? It's absolutely... It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I know it's going to be horrendous on your end of the stick for a while. I know it's going to just drive you to places that you can't go yet. It's going to show you doors that you're not ready to open, all this sort of stuff. But don't lose sight of it. Okay? Don't let your mind training damp you down of it. Use your mind, use that passion for your mind training. It's not an alternative. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'm sure you can hear what I'm trying to say, right? It's like 1 in 1,000 people I'll meet, you know, not even, I don't even know how 1 in 1,000 people I'll meet, and they're so passionate for God. So I'm going to tell you this story, right? It's like everyone will awaken because they did, but everybody on this screen, everybody in this world, I don't know when their awakening moment is, right? It depends upon the prayer of the heart, which is put there by God itself in your heart. There is an activating prayer in your heart that will bring forth the enlightenment of your mind, and you're as close to it as anybody else I know. So when I was traveling Australia doing workshops and stuff, I stopped at a little town called Tilba, and a woman there gave us the full use of her house, and there was 3 of us went, gave us the full use of her house. She had a spare room, and her house was overlooking a lake. It was lovely, and for 3 months we did workshops and everything there 3 days a week, and then we would travel to other little towns nearby and do stuff. One of those towns, I forget the name, might have been Bermagui or something, but we would travel to Bermagui, let's say, which is about 20 minutes away. And once a week we would do our shopping. We'd go to the grocery stores and stuff. I had a van, right? Tina knows this story. I had a van, a hiatus van, and on the back was a sticker it was by the Mary Blunt Foundation, and it said, "Forgiveness, giving up all hope for a better past." Right? And it was on the bumper sticker, "Giving up all hope for a better past, forgiveness." In the back window of the van, we'd put a big piece of cardboard and written A Course in Miracles and our contact number and something else. Anyway, we were leaving the car park of this big supermarket, and another car started following us out, and they followed us all the way home. Right? This little white car followed us all the way, 20-minute drive over the hills and around the corners back to Tilba, and pulled in the driveway behind us. And 2 women got out, a mother and a daughter. And the daughter came up to me. She was frantic, right? We had a session that was about to begin in about 5 minutes. We were just coming back with our shopping, and then we were going to do a session, and everybody was already there. She was frantic, and she grabbed a hold of me, and she's like, "I don't know who you are or what's going on, but I have to find Jesus. I need to find Jesus," right? She'd read that sticker and the Course in Miracles thing. She had the same passion you have, Francois. She had that same, I gotta push this limit. I've got to get to this thing that I know I have to have. You know, there's this internal knowing, this internal calling. And it was so strong. And I said to her, "Look, we're about to do a session. Come inside and do a session with us." Anyway, when she came inside, her mother was completely probably worried for her daughter's sanity and whatever. And the mother stood in the corner like this, very protective of whatever she was from what was going on. And we were crazy. Like, there was about 10 or 12 of us in the room. We're like doing woo, light session, and everybody's laughing, crying, whatever going on, all this sort of stuff. And I walked over to the daughter and I put my hand on her head, and she just fell to the floor, right? There was a total moment of light transfer. She fell to the floor, and she was out for about a minute, maybe a little bit longer than a minute, which is the most I've ever seen of anybody. When they go out, they just, usually it's like 10 seconds or 20 seconds. She was out for ages. And her mother came over to me and she goes, "What's happened to my daughter?" And I said to her, "She's with Jesus. Just be patient," you know, something like that. And I said, "She's with Jesus." And then about a minute later, she comes to, this woman. She stood up. She gave me a big hug and hugged everybody. And she's like, "I just saw Jesus." She's like, "I was just with Jesus," you know, and she had this whole thing go on. Obviously, the session stopped. But and I gave her a copy of the course and everything, and she was high as a kite. She couldn't control herself, you know. So it's like she had this whole thing goes on. She had the same energy for God as you do, right? Which is why I don't want you to damp it down with mind training. I want you to feel it, right? So to that end, sit back in your chair and get comfortable. All of you can do this. Sit upright and get comfortable. Francois, now sit back in your chair and get comfortable. Close your eyes. This is a great experiment that you've been invited to, and we're going to do some experimenting. God is with you now. It's what you are as his creation, not separate from him, loved and loving and worthy of love, to give and to receive. It is your right. It is your right to remember your Father. You must ask. The prayer must come from your heart. You have to feel it, how much you want God. More than this world. Lesson 10, my thoughts don't mean anything. More than your thoughts. Your thoughts about God cannot reveal God to you. You must bring yourself to the place, bring yourself to the inner altar and put yourself wholly on it. You've been right to the edge of that altar, Francois. Some of those things you've written to me have come from pure passion. The words have meant nothing to me. I've seen completely between the words. I want you to feel it, how much you want your Father, how much you want to remember. The memory is in you. Fran, the memory of God is in you, in all of you. Father, here I am. Father, here I am. I'm not going to adjust. I'm not going to run away and come back tomorrow. I'm here now. Here I am, Lord. Feel it. Feel it. Let it in. Here I am, Father. Let it take you to that place where you can't take it anymore. I want to know what I am. I want to remember my truth. I want to know what I am as spirit and be helpful to my brothers. I don't want to be doing this mind training for another 20 goddamn years. I want to know now. I'm only asking for what has already been given. Feel. Feel. Here I am, Lord. And stay in that place. Be still. Stay in that place and be still in your mind. Here I am. There's a passion in you that comes from your truth, a little spark of truth in you that is burning. And when you call upon it, it burns brighter. It burns brighter and brighter, and in its burning brighter, it calls you more and more. Listen to it. Listen to your inner teacher. Breathe and feel. You can feel the calling of God. You can hear it through feeling it. I feel the stirring of his strength in me. I feel that stirring. I feel something inside. I can't explain it. I feel something inside, and I want to know what it is. Francois, look down. Feel it. Good. Yes. Sharon, camera on, please, if you're going to participate. Angela, sit up straight. Kevin, sit up straight. Here I am, Lord. Breathe. Yes, Tina. Push. I think it's lesson 16 where Jesus says, imagine a thick bank of clouds in front of you and push through them. You can't push through those imaginary clouds with your imaginary hands. You push through them with your passion. You push through them with your conviction, with your willingness to listen and to hear. Good. Tina, that's good. Francois, breathe. Kevin, breathe. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the top of your head. Focus on the top of your head. If you haven't done this breathing technique before, like in our early Zooms, practice it now. Focus in through your nose, out through the top of your head. In the top of your head, if you focus after a few breaths, you should feel like a little breeze, like a little air coming out of the top of your head. It's not air, it's energy. Breathe. Here I am, Lord. Still the mind. We enter now into a posture of waiting, a mental posture of waiting. We're stilling our mind, refusing to listen to any thoughts. And we're keeping our mind in that quiet place with the simple invitation to God to take the final step. Here I am, Lord. There's nothing in the world that I want. The world I see holds nothing that I want. I'm willing to surrender it, to forgive it, to release it in its entirety. My children, my family, my job, my money, my credibility, my everything that is attributed to me as this idea of self-identity, I'm willing to release it, to forgive it, and to let it go forever. Breathe. Francois, breathe. Deep breaths, slowly in, slowly out. Good, Tina, good. Stay there. Stay in that place. Don't adjust to it. Do not adjust to it. You may call it pain. You may call it discomfort. You may call it whatever you want to call it. But everything is God. Everything is energy. It's like you're going back through the birth canal energetically. It's going to be uncomfortable just for a second. There's going to be a moment of terror, a moment of what the heck, and then boop, out the other side. Breathe. Yes, it's good. You guys, if you haven't watched some of those early Zooms where we do this, Tina will send you the link and you can watch some and you'll make yourself proficient in this technique. It's really cool. Here I am, Lord. Here I am. Here I am. And then refuse to adjust. Here I am. It's the one time when you can successfully and legitimately use entitlement to get what you want. Because you're entitled to remember your Father. Your Father is calling and you have answered. Your Father calls, you answer. Yes, Lord, here I am. I want to remember you. I'm willing to forgive. Whatever it takes. I don't even want there to be anything to forgive, not in the future or the past or now. It's preposterous. I just want love, unconditional love for all living things. Good, Anna. Good. Feel. Fran, feel deeper. Reach deeper. Don't get astral with this. Francois, feel it deeper. Remember how you've been in those texts that you sent me. I want you to go deeper than that. I'm damn sure it's in you. I can see it in you. I feel it in you. Angela, the same. Go deeper. Feel. Feel your longing. Feel that longing to remember your Creator. It's there somewhere. Just like Sharon, she's there somewhere. There she is. Breathe. Sharon, close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Bring your camera down a bit. There you are. Breathe. Focus. Here I am, Lord. Here I am. Be assertive. Be passionate. Feel it, your heart full. There's nothing else I want in the world. Everything out there ends in death. What is the point? Even if there is something out there, perhaps I'm not even being honest with myself. I'm willing to let go of it. Maybe there are things in the world that I think I still have to accomplish. I still have to fulfill obligations and contracts and deals. Let it go. Walk out your front door right now, mentally. See yourself with Jesus knocking at your front door. Give up the world, brother. Follow me. And your answer is simply, yes, Lord. And out you go, leaving behind everything you thought you ever knew. Starting life again. Either that or you hesitate. If Jesus knocks on your front door, too late. The kingdom of heaven waits for no man. Breathe. Take a deep breath in slowly, out slowly through the top of the head. Whenever I breathe out of the top of my head, I get a little flash of light and it just it breaks my chain of thought. Francois, this is what you must develop. Right? Here I am, Father, is a state of penitence in the mind, a state of going before, or a state of order, where one of a lesser order goes before one of a greater order. Think of it that way. It's by no means a state of supplication or anything like that. It's not that you're less in power or magnitude or anything else. You're exactly equal. But there's a willingness and an admission to accept that God is your creative source, whereas your ego would have you assume that you are your own creative source, that you are God, which of course we know is not true. You are of God, and therefore God itself, but you are not the creative source. That's why you have to have an experience so you can understand it. It's like literally, it's beyond human understanding. There's a place in you that you will reach. There's a place in you where the road ends, where you have no more time for transformation, no more time for A Course in Miracles. You want to know. Don't get stuck becoming a student of A Course in Miracles. It can't help you. It can only show you how to help yourself. A doctor does not use his study books to become a doctor and then continue to use them. He puts them on the shelf and he becomes about the practice of being the doctor. Good, Tina, good. Here I am, Lord. Here I am, Lord. I'm here before you. My heart is calling out to you. Good. Francois, look at Tina. Look at Anna. That's you. I know you can feel that. It's energy. Breathe. This course is a course in mind training, but the mind and the heart have to come together. The heart is the passion, which is what it is you're feeling when you want to know God. I want to know the truth. There is a passion to want to know. The mind is the decision maker. It chooses to know. Right? The power and the passion are both within you. The power of decision and the passion of the heart. You have to bring them together. There's a place where you can go no further. You've chosen for God. You're totally passionate about that, and there's nothing else. It's like Francis of Assisi. He had a little ministry going and left the war and rebuilt a church, figuratively or symbolically. Started a monastic order, probably not by his own choosing. It was probably started around him, I think. And then at some point in all the doing for God, he realized that he had still not experienced God directly. And he went off on his what do you call that? His pilgrimage across the mountains to find God. He didn't know if he was going to find God on his pilgrimage or not. He just knew he had to go. He had to do it, whatever it was. And he just started walking and he trusted and he had faith, which is what a pilgrimage is. And at some point along his pilgrimage, he received the wounds of Christ, the stigmata, the 5 wounds, and eventually succumbed to those wounds some months later and passed away. What also occurred to him through the receiving of those wounds, I don't know. I don't think it's ever been written about or he ever spoke of it. But whatever occurs in the physical is also in the spiritual. I can imagine. I can imagine he wasn't the least bit concerned about his wounds. The power and the passion are within you. The power and the passion are within you. Passion of the heart with the power of decision. Heart and mind come together. Here I am, Lord. I've got nowhere else to go. Here I am, Lord. I want to remember. I'm entitled to remember. I'm a child of God, And you have to stand up for that. You've got to feel it. The transformation and the purification of the mind at some point occurs. For me, it occurred after my enlightenment. Prior to my enlightenment, I was the walking epitome of a lost soul. I was much like you in many regards. I had an idea of God. I had an idea of something greater than myself. I'd had many experiences of having applied faith in my life and seen that it had worked, seen that there was somehow a higher power supporting me. And I couldn't understand it, and I wanted to understand it. And it drove me to the dark night of my soul, which I wouldn't recommend for anybody. The path of purification seems to be, from what I've learned of it in recent years and in years since my enlightenment, seems to be a more gentle process, a more gradual process. But it too is not without its emotional upheavals and its confrontations and all of these sorts of things. Which path is best for which person? I don't know. I can't say. But I know when I recognize passion. I know when I see it. And in you, Francois, I see it. In Tina, I see it. Anna, I see it. It's something that drives you and pushes. The love for all mankind, the love for all living things. Let that love be your torment, because it's a torment of love. The torment of love is not a painful torment. It's purposeful. It's the love where the fat lady sings. That's it. It's everything. Breathe. And it's just a step away. You know? I've seen people going from a state of mind where they're completely downtrodden in the world, and within an incredibly short period of time using the course, they've become incredibly passionate and vibrant about life. Just purely for the little bit of insertion of reason, the little bit of reasonability that's been presented to them about why they are the way they are and what they can do about it. Our brother Dean, who he doesn't come to the meetings, but who's here with me. When I first met Dean, he was suicidal. He'd lost 5 family members in the space of 2 years, all by tragic circumstances. He didn't want to go on. He'd had nothing left. His whole life was just fallen away, and like everything around him was just not worth living. I would have called him a non at the time, but now he's not a Jew anymore, but he's more than that, inclusive of being Jewish. Now he's at Jesus's right-hand side. He wakes every day to serve, and he serves. He's out in the community. He's talking to people. That's his journey, his path. What yours is may look completely different, but he's totally passionate for his resurrecting life. He's totally passionate for the changes that are occurring in him and occurring in the people around him through him. And it's beautiful to see. He would be the equivalent of what I would consider to be the disciple John to Jesus. He's just about his father's business, start to finish. And it's a joy. It's a joy to see him and to be in his presence. Breathe. and feel. Ready? Yeah. Yes. Ready? Open your mind. Here I am, Lord. Yes. Sharon, camera on, please. If you're going to participate, it's fully or not at all. All or nothing. You had it on before, so I know you can put it on again. Please leave your camera on. Good. Breathe. Don't fall asleep. Breathe. A Course in Miracles is a path to enlightenment through a process of purifying the mind from the falsity of its own beliefs about itself to bring about incremental and accumulative ongoing experiences of direct union. You can call them glimpses or holy instants or whatever you want to call them. Jesus calls them holy instants in the Course. Every time you have a shift, every time you initiate change, you'll have an experience. Initially, you may be somewhat dim to recognize the experience. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. Some of these things are going to come as quite of a shock, and some of them are going to come unexpectedly, etc. And the last thing that the Holy Spirit wants is to scare you more than you already are. And you might think that within the confines of your homes and your familiar surroundings, you feel quite safe. You feel quite okay. But remember that for almost all of us, me included, outside of what we reference as our safe places or our comfort zones, the world is a violent and unpredictable place. I remember watching a little video clip of some people that went on holiday to New Zealand to see this volcano, and while it was there, while they were there, it erupted and they were killed. So even on holiday, where you think you're having fun and doing things, it's like the world is unpredictable. You have to really look at the world for what it is with open eyes. Safety zones and places where you feel comfortable aren't going to be button pushers for you. You can look at the world physically and allow it to push your buttons and activate you, or you can do it in your own mind. You can look at the world and realize through a process of reasoning that everything in the world ends in death. From little tiny garden bugs to great big planets and solar systems. As far as we know, we're the last planet with living life on it in the universe. Everything else has died out over the course of 130 billion years, or however long science thinks it's been going, which doesn't really matter. But here and now, what have we got? We have each other. We have this beautiful support network for coming to a place where we're learning together that it's okay to feel like shit. It's okay not to like the world. And in fact, Jesus tells you, until you hate the world, you cannot follow me. You've got to really see it for what it is. Otherwise, you're still going to be hanging on to hope. Hope is the denial of certainty. Try to hear that. The resurrection in you is certain, but hope is the denial of it. Hope denies the what do you call it? The power of hope denies truth. Give up all hope, ye who enter here. You have to let go of hope. You're entitled to miracles. You don't have to hope that you're entitled to miracles. You are. Jesus is telling you you're entitled to miracles. Now believe that for yourself. You're a child of God. Francois, you're a child of God. You have the same power as anybody else. No more and no less. You are a child of God. In this world, you've been called to represent that. And in so doing, discover it for yourself. You've been called to walk with Jesus. It's like, holy crap. I've been called. And some of you've answered the call because here you are. Boot Camp 101. And it's a beautiful thing. All right, I want to do a lesson, but I don't have my book. Just give me a second. I want to do lesson 26. Oh. Probably could remember it word for word. We can see. No, I can't, says Jesus. Jesus always has a good laugh at me, with me perhaps, but generally at me, I think. I said I could probably remember the whole lesson word by word, actually, and Jesus just said, he said, no, you can't. All right. Lesson 26. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. Francois, listen. Don't read along, just listen. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. You want to know what your attack thoughts are? It's every thought in your head. Every single one. If you think you're looking for attack thoughts, it's like the next one you have is an attack thought, including this one. Right? My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. It is surely obvious that if you can be attacked, you are not invulnerable. You see attack as a real threat. That is because you believe that you can really attack. And what would have effects through you must also have effects on you. It is this law that will ultimately save you, but you are misusing it now. You must therefore learn how it can be used for your own best interests rather than against them. Because your attack thoughts will be projected, you will fear attack. And if you fear attack, you must believe that you are not invulnerable. Attack thoughts therefore make you vulnerable in your own mind, which is where the attack thoughts are. Attack thoughts and invulnerability cannot be accepted together. They contradict each other. Right, so I'm reading this lesson, and it's easy to be third person in the lesson and look at it and go, oh, that's interesting. You have to really take it on board that Jesus is talking to you directly. There's not 2 million copies of this book in print. There's one, and it's the one you're reading, and it's being spoken directly to you. And that's how you have to take it on board. This is my direct curriculum from Jesus, from the Christ mind. When I read these words, it's like, holy crap. They resonate in me like something being spoken directly from the ascended master himself. Perhaps I may not understand them. Perhaps they might seem quite abstract to me at the time, but it's through their use that I come to learn what they mean. Okay, which is why in these workbooks, there's always the application part. I have to use the lesson. The idea for today introduces the thought that you always attack yourself. If attack thoughts must entail the belief that you are vulnerable, their effect is to weaken you in your own eyes. Thus, they have attacked your perception of yourself. And because you believe in them, you can no longer believe in yourself. A false image of yourself has come to take the place of what you are. You are the Christ. You are the Spirit. Eternal and whole, loved and loving. That's all. You're not something else other than that. You can obscure that from your own awareness, but you can't change it. Practice with today's idea will help you to understand that vulnerability or invulnerability is the result of your own thoughts. Nothing except your thoughts can attack you. Nothing except your thoughts can make you think you are vulnerable, and nothing except your thoughts can prove to you this is not so. 6 practice periods are required in applying today's idea. A full 2 minutes should be attempted for each of them, although the time may be reduced to a minute if the discomfort is too great. Do not reduce it further. The practice period should begin with repeating the idea for today, then closing your eyes and reviewing the unresolved situations whose outcomes are causing you concern. The concern may take the form of depression, worry, anger, a sense of imposition, fear, foreboding, or preoccupation. Any problem as yet unsettled, which tends to recur in your thoughts during the day, is a suitable subject. You will not be able to use very many for any one practice period because a longer time than usual should be spent with each one. Today's idea should be applied as follows. I'm concerned about something, 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 then go over every possible outcome which has occurred to you in that connection and which has caused you concern, referring quite specifically to each one, quite specifically saying, I'm afraid something, something will happen. If you are doing the exercises properly, you should have some 5 or 6 distressing possibilities available for each situation you use, and quite possibly more. It is much more helpful to cover a few situations thoroughly than to touch on a larger number. As the list of anticipated outcomes for each situation continues, you will probably find some of them, especially those which occur to you toward the end, less acceptable to you. Try, however, to treat them all alike to whatever extent you can. After you have named each outcome of which you are afraid, tell yourself, That thought is an attack upon myself. Conclude each practice period by repeating today's idea once more. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. Okay. One of the things I like in this lesson, right, and this has to do with the superficial nature of consciousness, especially those which occur to you towards the end, right? You might find them less acceptable. So you're in a period of mind training, you've got 2 minutes or whatever it is you want to devote to it. Initially, what happens is you'll find the situations and events in your thinking that are on the surface, the ones that are your current things that you're dealing with in life, right? And then as you sort of sort through those and give those to the lesson, and then other ones come, you'll find other ones that tend to resonate on a deeper level, something that perhaps you've had no success with dealing many, many times in the past. Things that reflect back to trauma and things that reflect back to situations that are unresolved from childhood, perhaps even things that you really have tried to put out of awareness, right? But now we're looking at everything that's there. Now we're looking at all of these thoughts, all of these attack thoughts from whatever part of our human experience they come. And we're trying to realize, firstly, that they're all the same. They all represent separation. It's not the intensity of the situation that particularly matters. It's what it represents. I can have 10 pieces of a jigsaw puzzle in one hand and 2 pieces of a puzzle in the other hand, but the puzzle's not complete without all of those pieces. I have to give 10 just the same as I have to give 2 to make the puzzle complete, right? So the intensity of the situation as it appears to you doesn't really matter. The miracle accomplishes the healing, not your capacity to understand the healing, right? Which is why it's a miracle. You may have a greater emotional response to some situations than others, but that's of no concern to the miracle, right? Which is why it's a Course in Miracles and not a Course in Francois got this. If you think you've got this, you know, and like finger on my nose here, but if I think I've got this and I think I can do this, then I'm guaranteed I'm getting in the way. Everything has to be miraculous. I have to learn to be miracle-minded throughout. My whole, from my when I wake up in the morning, it's like, I don't know, but God knows. Let go and let God. Here I am, Father, I give you my day and everything, including these lessons that I'm doing. So lesson 26, my attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. Like Jesus says in the beginning of that lesson, this is your whole way out if you can see it. Right? Because what's going on seemingly out in your outer world is a direct reflection of what's going on in your thinking as a state of mind, a fearful state of mind. Right? I'm attacking myself with my own fearful thoughts. I've made up a monster in the cupboard as a child, let's say, or a monster under the bed, and I believe it's there. Even though I have no logical proof it's there, I believe it's there, and I hide under the sheets every night, imagining it to be there. Now, as a small child, imagine the power of that imagination. It keeps you petrified in your bed. The cupboard doors open a little bit and you don't know what's in there. As a child, you imagine all sorts of black, dark, horrible things in the cupboard. And you pull the blankets up over and you see your eyeballs, you know, you're like, maybe there's something there, or you pull the blanket right over. That's as a child. Imagine that state of mind growing to human maturity, right? Did you deal with it then as a child? And I'm just using a very simple example. No, you probably didn't. You probably think that you grew out of it, but that's the same state of mind that you use now. You imagine possible scenarios for things that don't actually exist. Right? This is the human nature. Human nature tries to eliminate the variables, eliminate the possibilities out of any particular situation before it takes a step into it. That's not faith. Unless a man lives by faith alone, he shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is simply a state of mind where you have no concerns or cares about your earthly life whatsoever. You're free and you know it. you're completely nurtured and loved by a creative source, and you know it. You feel it in your heart. It embodies your experience here. It's something that just people look at you like you're crazy. It's a funny thing. So my attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. It's like when you're ready and when you're willing, you'll be able to look at those attack thoughts. It's like Jesus says in the Course, seek for the blocks and find them. This is a journey into fear, not away from it. This is a journey into fear. We're going to consciously, deliberately, and determinedly look for our fears. We're going to uncover them wherever they are in our thinking. We're going to expose them to the light of truth and let them vanish like mists before the sun, Jesus says. One after the other, after the other, after the other. And when the first one falls, it'll be like dominoes. They all fall, because you'll see that if fear has no foundation in one circumstance in your life, then it obviously has no foundation in any circumstance in your life. Right? And people will try to tell you, well, there are reasonable fears, you know, like if a fear of the hot plate, if you put your hand on the hot plate and so, no, that's just reason. That's not really fear. That's just, you know, being sensible. The body has its limitations and everything, and you want it to be useful to you whilst it lasts in salvation. Let's not do anything stupid. Get it? Stick with your mind training. Keep that passion alive, because it will push you through. Right? I'm choosing for God. I've got the passion to do that. Boom, I put those two things together in this situation, that situation, this situation, and look what happens. Miracles after miracles. Any questions, Francois? I'm just kind of picking on you a bit today because I know you've got a lot going on. I want to give you as much of what I can as possible.
Yeah, today was just gonna refer to today. It's just been, yeah, that this is the deep longing.
Good.
I think I had an experience many years ago. That's what the Course refers to as the Holy Instant. And I'm trying to get back to it.
Right.
And I know this Course is the truth, but I feel like I'm healing. I feel like I'm partly healed. And yeah, I feel like part of me is healed. That's why I say I feel like I'm split in two.
Right. Yep. Okay, so stop there for a second, because there's a few things that you said there that I want to just talk about. Otherwise, I'll get lost if you keep talking. Yeah. All right. So you said you had an experience some years ago and you're trying to get back there. Okay. Don't try to get back there. Don't try to get back there. Simply accept that you had an experience and move on from it. All right. Any experience that is divine occurs from outside of time and space. Yeah. Whether you experience it here through the vessel or not doesn't matter. But the occurrence, the origin point was outside of time and space. Right? Revelation is one of no world. Revelation shows you that there is no world. It takes you, well, it doesn't really take you out of time and space, because time and space doesn't actually exist. And that's semantics, I know, but it awakens you to the truth. It awakens you in a state of your eternal self. It awakens you to who you are, and the world vanishes because you cannot hold two thoughts of yourself which are diametrically opposed in your mind at the one time, in the one instant. And the one instant of eternity is eternal, right? So don't worry about trying to get back there. It's like Jim Carrey had an experience of realizing that he was one with all things in the presence of Eckhart Tolle. Right? He went and did a workshop and whatever, and somewhere along the line in that workshop, he had an experience of realizing that he was the clouds and the mountains and the trees, and he was one with all things. And when he was talking about it, he said exactly what you said. And ever since that experience, I've been trying to get back there. Right? Him trying to get back there is the denial of how it was that he had the experience in the first place. Right? That experience happens through the relinquishment of trying and the total adoption of a state of acceptance, and if you want to call that surrender, you can. Right? So trying to get actually working against your own best interests, working against what you're trying to do. You can't try to get back to something that you already are, right?
Yeah.
The experience that you've had in the past was actually at the end of time that you are heading towards, okay? Now, you can have that at the alpha or the omega. Imagine time like a tunnel, and you can go out one end or the other. We came in through the alpha, let's say, and we're headed out through the omega. Or if you turn that tunnel on its end, right, and you look through both holes at once, it's now. All of it exists at the one time. That's what we're attempting to do, okay, and are doing. We're and omega together, turning that time tunnel on its end, and we're seeing all time as one moment now. Okay? This process of unlearning and relearning that you're going through is something that seems to take time, but remember that the miracle collapses the time that takes. Now, miracles are your right, but purification is necessary first. The purification is what you're going through right now. Okay? It's a process of reinterpreting the defense mechanisms of your mind so that they work for your Christhood, not against it. Okay? You can't simply abolish them because you made them and you believe in them and you've given them value. So the Holy Spirit reinterprets them so that you begin to use them differently, right? When you begin to use them differently, then more can be given to you, right? It's like I wrote a post this morning about prayer, and in that post, I had somebody say to me a while ago, actually, it just popped into my head this morning, but a while ago, and it's common when I talk to people, they'll say to me things like, oh, I've been praying about this, but nothing seems to have changed, right? And so they assume that the prayer wasn't heard, or it failed, or perhaps there's no God, right? Perhaps God's not listening, right? Now, it's never that the prayer fails, but you can be completely unaware of the answer, right? Yeah. That's because your defense mechanisms are geared to reject the truth. God is only ever going to answer you with some form of the truth that you can understand. But if the thinking of your mind is been overtrained to reject that which is divine, it's not going to be able to receive the answer to your prayer. It'll still be given, and therefore it's never lost, but it means that you're not going to understand it. Something will happen throughout the day, and you won't even jig that was the answer to your prayer. Someone will say something and give you a direction, and, oh, that's nice, and you'll carry on oblivious to the fact that God just answered you. Right? So this is why your mind has to be open to all things being the divine will of God. Everything. Don't give it any meaning, but just be open to being shown. Right? When you allow everything to have the meaning of everything, including yourself, then you become automatically one part of a whole, if you like, in the world, and you'll start to see everything as the presence of God. You'll start to see that everything around you is simply God manifest, you included in that as, let's say, the observer of the situation, and you'll begin to notice things that you never noticed before. You'll begin to pick up on vibrations of things that seem to be speaking to you. All right. Now, I can't explain that because communication between you and God is personal, right? You and the divine is personal, and whatever it is to you, it is to you. But I know whatever it is to me, it is to me, because I've done things, I've heard things, and I've followed directions, and I've listened to things, and I've taken chances with stuff thinking maybe I'm crazy, but I'm just going to go and do this. And it's always panned out to be some kind of incredible beatific kind of experience that could only ever have come from divine source, divine origin. And it's nestled in my heart and in my soul and made greater the witness to truth in me. My attempt to try and impart that to you, I hope, is successful, and I hope is helpful. But, you know, you only hear things where you hear things from, and your own experience of knowing that God is everything in your own life is going to be what it is that allows you to perceive that when it comes, like as an answer to your prayer. Right? So prayer is always answered, but you may not be able to hear it because of the defense mechanisms going on in your thinking, even your spiritual ones. Right? Now, remember, spiritual transition is just exactly that. It's a transition. You're going to read these workbook lessons for the very first time, and you're going to go, oh, I see. Yep. And you're going to think you know what that says. And then I guarantee you, if you pick that same lesson up a year later and read it again, you'll be like, holy crap, I never read it that way before. That it's much more in it. It's much deeper than I initially thought. Right? See you, Kev. Thanks for joining. You're going to realize that it's much deeper and contains much more energetic substance than you thought it had the first time you read it. Right? Don't become addicted to reading the course year after year just to see if you get a better impact from the lessons, but just realize that in every situation, there's always an availability of more, because God is not limited by my ability to perceive him, right? Even through these workbook lessons, God is not limited at all. I'm the one limiting me. And it's like I'm opening up slowly to God. And every year I do those workbook lessons, I open up and again, and then, bit more. And it's like, wow. You know, there's a real moment of wow. So anyway, are we going to do the next lot of lessons, Tina, or are we just going to do our Satsang?
I think we're going to do a Satsang today, and we'll do the lessons to finish up next week.
We kind of did a little one before.
We did a little.
We might do some circle work. We might do. I just want Anna to really step in there for a second. Anna, are you listening? I know
This
things
felt
that,
like our Satsang. I thought you meant
right.
This felt like our Satsang. But you want to do some circle work too? Yeah, this felt like the Satsang.
And it feels circle.
Yeah, it feels like doing the lessons with in my heart.
Yeah.
Next time.
Oh, hang on. I've got my thing on. How do I? Anyone know how to turn off the torch on an iPhone? I don't know how to turn it off.
Yeah, so you have your flashlight on.
I know.
I think if you just swipe down, the little button will come up.
Now.
Siri just turned it off. She's so good, my Siri. I don't even know how it came on. My light just comes on all the time.
Don't hide it under a bushel.
I won't hide it under the bushel. I've just got to turn it off for now, though. It's too much. Oh, yeah, we'll do some circle work. Arnie, your brother. I won't bring it up too much in this because it's kind of personal, but
You can say whatever. It's my cousin.
oh, your cousin. Yeah, your cousin. So your cousin still has hope in the world, still has hope for other alternatives and things. So I really can't interject into that too much. You know, like anytime I try to say anything, he's like, oh yeah, I know what you're saying, but there's always a but. All right. So there's not really an openness to experience something other than what he's already aware of. So he's still trying to manage the situation rather than just leave it in the hands of God. You know?
Yeah.
And that's fine. You have to get the results of your own thinking, and you know, the place for you to accept in all of that is that he may well be suicidal. He may well be at the end of his rope and whatever, and he may never hear, you know, I could talk to him till I'm blue in the face. He may never actually hear me, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to come to an acceptance of. It's like you can't say that a prophet's never welcome in their own home. And sometimes you can talk till you're blue in the face, or you can care about someone until, you know, and they're just going to go off and do it anyway. Personally, I don't think he is.
Okay.
All right. I mean, I'm always willing to be wrong about everything, but I didn't get a sense that he was suicidal. I got a sense that he was desperate.
I feel like he's always like really up and down with things. So it's yeah,
exactly. Yeah, he's probably looked at the idea of suicide as a way out, but not given it any deeper contemplation. So I would say just keep the door open there. You know, for you, don't try to be a big influence or do anything like that. Just say, look, you go and deal with it your way. If it doesn't work, come back to me. Right? Just let him know that the door's always open. He can come back to you, and then maybe you know, sometimes people just got to keep going and trying to do it their way until finally they realize their ways, they've run out of options.
Yeah, it's like it hit a wall.
Yeah, until he hits the wall, you know, and then it's like, well, I mean, that's how Jesus found me. I hit a wall. Same thing. I mean, it's pretty much for most of us, usually we hit a wall in life somewhere and we pray and then Jesus shows up. So Fran knows about that. She's nodding. Yeah. We're just Jesus's, what's that show, McHale's Navy, you know, with all the goofballs and they all run the submarine. Somehow they get the job done. God knows, because they're all clumsy and they're all just like got no clue how to drive a submarine, but they managed to get it done regardless. You know, that's us. We just got to stick together. You know, that Ted used to say to us all the time. Sometimes he'd go back to Wisconsin and teach for a while when the old man had a break and whatever, and he'd be like, just stick together. Stay together while I'm gone. He'd be gone for 2 weeks or a month or something, and everybody would leave. No one would stick together. There'd be like a dozen of us, you know, there'd be a dozen of us that would hold it together and stick together. And everybody would pop in towards the end of 2 weeks to find out what day Ted was coming back. And then they'd show up again as if they'd already been there all the time. You know, it's like, I wanted to be little like Dibby Dobber and dob them all in and just say, none of these people here have been here. You told us to stay together. And they all. I never
Snitches
did.
get stitches.
Right. Yeah, snitches get stitches. But you
Gold star.
I've got pop-up. Yeah. But it's like, it's true, you know, like Jesus said, 2 in 10,000 will hear this. And you've got to really include yourself in as I want to be one of those 2. You know, I want to be of the 2 in 10,000. It's like, I'm determined to hear. I'm determined that this is my time of awakening. I'm determined that I'm putting all this damn effort in. I want a result. I want to see change. I want miracles in my life. It's like the miracles occur when you're willing to step out of your comfort zone. It's like in your comfort zone, it's like Jesus says, what's the point in preaching to those that already know about me, already know about your Father? Go out and find those who you know, which is why you send the disciples out, those who have a thirst and those who hunger and all of that sort of thing. So the comfort zone, Tina's got her little ministry around her block. I can see that happening. Tina, she goes for a walk around her block and there's homeless people, there's the down and out, there's everybody there. It's like, man, you're living in luxury amidst your ministry, you know, like who's those evangelists and they've got the $1 million houses and all the poor people come and give bigger houses.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
They'll be living in your apartment soon, you know. Be like, can I just come in and use your? Just come in and use your bathroom.
Always got stuff for them. It's always good. Oh, it's always good.
I've been seeing. I saw that one video pop up of streets of LA, and since then, I guess because I clicked on it, I get more of that sort of stuff. It's like it's ridiculous how much homelessness you guys have.
Yeah. I told you about the guy. What happened in the Bangladesh market? I told you that, right? It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. Well, the whole thing was amazing. The Bangladesh market, we had an encounter about Krishna and Jesus.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah. But then there was a homeless guy in that market. That sort of came to like a little thing where we had. It was really beautiful though. This the discussion about Krishna and Jesus and the whole and then like a prostitute comes in and then we just start talking about it all and then it just ended in like all this laughter. Like we were just like, oh, and she just goes, I love you. And I was like, I love you. So it was like beautiful. And then it turned it like a week later, like you told me to take that walk. And the owner of the market was a little like, aren't you supposed to, because I have Krishna on my phone. It's like, aren't you supposed to be about Jesus? I'm totally about Jesus. And I love Krishna too. And he was kind of like, you got to pick one. So we had this little thing where it kind of came to a like, it's just oneness. It's just one. And then a couple of days ago, I was back in the market again, and there was a homeless guy in line, and he was just kind of talking. And I was like, are you trying to say something to me? And he was telling me the story of how he'd been homeless for like 20 years. Damn. And I says, well, brother, I get, whatever I got, you got. And I had come out of my house and I recalled that I didn't have any money. I usually have cash with me because I want to buy
the cocoa water. Is that it?
Yeah. And I didn't have any cash. I was like, oh, I don't have any cash. But I only had like $4 or something like that. I was like, okay, well, I can buy just some cocoa water today. But then the guy was like, I need some, whatever. And I was like, I tried to give him $3 so I could have $1 for the coconut water. And I was like, that's not cool. So I gave him all of the money that I had. And then the owner's son felt some sort of way about that. So he was like, go get some coconut water. We have some here. And I was like, no, dude, I want to get it from the street. And I said, have you ever had it before? He's like, no, I never had it. I go, well, I'm going to get you some. And I remember like I got credit cards. I can go get some cash. So I got my cash and whatever. I did my yoga and I was on my way back and I was in the line not in the line. It's just you go on the corner and they're selling fruit and stuff. So, I'm always like chatting it up with the fruit guy. And there was another guy in line. It's hot in LA. So he and I start talking about, I was like, dude, you know how to eat. Like he was making his fruit. I was like, dude, you make your fruit like I make my fruit. So we're just like chatting it up. And then he starts telling me about how he was going to go get some edibles and do his thing. I was like, yeah, I don't really get down with edibles. I just pray.
Ahoy.
And he says, I pray too. And then he goes and we start talking about prayer. Hey? And he says, I had a direct
connection. No, I don't. I'm in the Zoom
meeting. I was rejecting God, but God revealed himself to me. And I was like, you have to tell me the story of how God revealed himself to you. So he tells me this whole story. Like we're in LA and this like looks like just some guy who's talking about going to get some weed. And he's like, starts telling me about his revelation with God. And I was like, how crazy is that? Like it just the sequence of events from me saying I'm going to get some coconut water to me, like being on a corner with a guy and him telling me his miracle of his revelation. He told me, he says, what happened with me was I stopped praying for myself. And I was like, wow. He said, I just decided that I was going to pray for other people. He said, I fasted and I just prayed and God showed himself to me. He says, now me and God are good. He goes, I do my weed and me and God, we speak. I said, however, you got to do what you got to do. I got no judgment on that. Yeah. So it was like, that was a beautiful thing. And then I went back and I got the coconut water and I took it to the kid in the market and, it was like really cool. Now I see the homeless guy and he's like, I pass by him and, we do what we do, but yeah, it's good. It's good. It just feels so, yeah. And I was in a meeting and someone was talking about putting up how to, their emotions were so strong and how to protect themselves.
Oh man.
And I was sitting there and I was like listening to it and I was real nervous to say anything. And finally they would start talking about like putting up light and stuff. And I was like, I finally just had to say something. And I said, you guys might feel some sort of way and I don't mean it. That's not my intention. But I'm the light of the world. Who else is gonna do it? I was like, I don't want anything between me and my brother. Like, what are you talking about? Like, defend yourself against your brother. Like, I want everything.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. That's how I feel when I'm walking these streets.
That's us. That's us. That's the Christ.
Just,
That's it. No defenses.
no, I want it all. I
Yep.
mean, and saying correctly, like you said, it's just love. It's just so, I
Yep.
mean, that's the Christ.
That's
So
it.
good. So good. Ah, yeah, come get this love. Come get this love.
I got some. Thanks.
Come get it. Oh, yeah.
So I sold my house, Tina.
Oh,
I-
sorry.
I saw
Sorry,
that.
the way that ended. I'm sorry. The way that ended was that was in the Bangladesh market. You know, we had that whole thing with Krishna and Jesus. I sent it to you, and then when I went back to give him the water, hanging up on the thing was I love Jesus. Like all of a sudden he's got like this
I saw that, the lanyard.
planner, like I love Jesus. I'm like, see, dude, I knew it. Anyway, sorry, that's how the story ended. Sorry, and you sold your house. Sorry.
I liked your story. I needed your story.
It's a good story.
Beautiful.
Things like
Parable.
that add,
A parable.
that adds up, Tina. That adds up as a thing in your mind and synapses, and like that one little experience, and adds up with all the others. And eventually you start to believe in yourself. You want to be the Christ. You're standing up for it. You had to say something in the meeting.
Yeah.
That's exactly beautiful and perfect. That's what I was telling Francois. You're going to have these moments, and they accumulate to the point where finally you can't not say something. You can't not be that.
Mm-mm.
You know, you're that now. And it's like I'm making my declaration. I'm standing up. I am the Christ.
Yeah.
Well, nothing. You only need to know it for yourself. But you know, everyone else, I'm grateful to for giving me the opportunity to stand up and declare it. Everyone's planned perfectly. I'm the one. You know, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. So I sold my house, and I'm moving into a pub. So, which is
a pub,
a hotel, pub,
like a pub,
so
a bar.
Yeah, like a bar.
Awesome.
So it's funny, you know, like I work in a tattoo shop. I'm going to be living at a bar and all of this sort of stuff, and it's like Jesus puts me where He needs me. But there's a pub up the road. It's a country pub. It's fairly quiet, I imagine, but. Country pub. We went there last night, me and my friend, just to see what sort of activity happens at this pub at night. But they have like a 5 acres ground around the pub. And then it's just land and mountains in the background. It's quite beautiful. And I'm going to be in my camper home out the back. And the people that run it are like, we just want someone to be here for sort of like night watchman or whatever, you know, so I'm basically a church warden again. But so I'm getting free rent and everything, and just paying a small amount for power. And I'm there in my mind thinking, you know, it's like Jesus is going into the pubs and the brothels and whatever. He's like, healthy people don't need a physician, you know, like that's where I'm meant to be. I'm like, oh God, this is.
I love it. I love it.
I know. There's this moment I had where I'm looking at it going, really? There's still more work to do. Like, what's going on here? You know, want a tropical island and a palm tree and a hammock. You know, nah. So I'm moving
Sounds cozy.
down the road. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's cozy, but who knows? We shall see. It's just.
That's gonna be fun.
Let's do a circle.
Right on.
Let's do a circle. I want you to close your eyes. Francois, close your eyes. Francois, it's very dark in your camera. Extra light there somehow. Can't really see you. You're just this silhouette of a person there. We need some more light on the subject. Let there be light. Oh.
Tina,
There we go. Look at
shine
this.
brighter, Tina.
Shine.
Thank you.
Any brighter, she's going to pop.
Yeah.
It's dark on that side. The light's on. That's weird. The light's on this side, and this is the dark side of my face. And this side's the window. It's brighter. Go figure. All right, close your eyes. Sit up nice and straight. Take a few deep breaths. I want you to use the power of creative visualization, the power of imagination. Imagine yourself in a forest. On the ground in front of you is a gold luminous circle, probably about 2 meters across, 3 meters across diameter. A circle of golden light on the forest floor. The purpose of that circle is healing. It's the only purpose it has and the only purpose it can be used for, healing. It's a sacred circle. Close your eyes. It's a place where you take all your cares and worries, all your concerns and fears to give to the Holy Spirit. The circle isn't really on the forest floor. It's in your mind. It's a place you dedicate to the Holy Spirit where you meet him to give him your illusions under the auspices of forgiveness or willingness to forgive. I want you to see that circle on the forest floor, how beautiful it is and what it represents, and try to get a sense of the holiness of what it is to step into that circle and to sit there in the circle on the forest floor and allow the Holy Spirit to do what needs to be done in you, to allow the Holy Spirit to work his miracles and wonders through you for your healing and the healing of your world. And when you feel ready, I want you to step into that circle. But before you do so, I want you to think of somebody that upsets you. Somebody that perhaps every time you see them, there's a sigh or a grievance or some kind of issue, problem, whatever it is, whether that's in your immediate family or at work or something you hope for, perhaps a situation that's unresolved, a situation that you realize within yourself, you don't know how to heal it. You don't know how to fix it, change it, anything. You just want peace in the outcome to that situation. Just peace. Not peace if the other person did something or didn't do something, but just peace across the board for you and the other person or you in the situation. Just peace, even if that means you don't get what you think you want to get out of the situation. You're willing to give it entirely to God, completely unconditionally, and in the realization that your spiritual journey or your spiritual progress is your greater good, not the situation as you perceive it. The situation is simply an opportunity for you to come closer to God and to realize the efficacy of God in your life. So there has to be a willingness to surrender the situation from all sides, all hopes, all wishes and dreams and expectations, everything. You've got to be willing to let go of it entirely. Now look at the circle. See the circle? I want you to feel that situation. And when you're ready, step into the circle. See yourself stepping into the circle and allowing all that emotionality around that situation to come up for healing. Step into the circle and feel it. Feel the situation. Feel the emotions that it plagues you with. Feel your concerns and your worries. Here I am, Father. Holy Spirit, take this from me. Allow all of that to come up. We're so good at pushing our emotions down and pretending, oh, that doesn't matter. But now we're going to let it up. Now we're going to let it out, and we're going to allow ourselves in the safety of our circle to feel it all as we let it go to God. Take this from me, Father, and breathe. This situation with my father or my mother or my aunt or uncle, children, with my neighbor. Let it go. Give it up. Father, take this from me. I need a miracle instead. I need a miracle instead. And breathe. Breathe. And stay in that circle. Don't step out of it. Stay in there until it's done. Let all that energy come up. All those emotions come up. Feel. Feel. Anna, Francois, feel. Go right to the bottom, right to the depth of it. It's like an emotional iceberg. On the surface, you're just aware of the tip. But if you let yourself go under the surface, if you let yourself sink down, realize that same situation has been playing out again and again and again. Your whole life, in every relationship, in every situation, in one form or another. You versus the world. Breathe. An iceberg is bigger underneath than it is on the top. And we're going to let ourselves sink under the surface into our denial as far as we can, as deep as we can. And we're not going to adjust. Breathe and feel. Feel the pain, the suffering, the fear. This is a journey into fear. This person that aggrieves me every day, every week, every month. This situation that is intolerable to me every day, every week, every month. Feel it. Let yourself have it totally. This is your release. You ready? Breathe. It used to be the starving children in Africa for me. I couldn't stand it. In the 80s, during the Great Famine, 11,000 babies would die every single day. Mothers would have no breast milk because they had no food. People were dying of starvation and malnutrition and hunger every day. It was on my television. It was in the newspapers. It was everywhere. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand to see food on my plate. I couldn't stand to put food in my mouth. I felt so guilty, knowing that 11,000 babies were dying every day, and I had plenty. That was all the pain in the universe to me. It doesn't matter whether it's an illusion or not an illusion. It doesn't matter whether it's real or not real. There's no way I could go to Africa and tell them, don't worry, it's not real. I had to deal with it where it was. It was in me. I was using the guilt as a weapon against God. I was using the guilt as a weapon against myself. I was giving one situation such an incredible amount of meaning that I was trying to leverage God out of his seat of power and put me there instead. Breathe and feel. Breathe and feel. Fran, go deeper. Push. How do I really feel about this? Let me get to the bottom. Let me take this one moment of discomfort and wring it out like a dishcloth for all it's worth. I want to get everything out of this. I don't want to sit on the surface. Let me squeeze the shit out of this cloth to the last drop. I'm just going to stay here in this circle and do this. How often do I give myself this chance to do this in daily life? How often do I allow myself to go this deep and give it to the Holy Spirit? Father, take this from me. Breathe. Get in there. Get right in. Yes, it sucks. It really feels bad. And I'm not going to look away. I'm not going to shy away from it. And I'm going to go there. Totally go there, and I'm going to feel it and own it and take responsibility for it and accept atonement for myself in that place. I'm one with this. These are my thoughts. This is my story, my situation, and I'm going to give it to the Holy Spirit for healing. Feel, breathe. It's very easy to live in denial of things. We've become the masters of getting comfortable in a comfortless place. Sometimes we're not even aware of our denial until we have an altercation with someone or until something shows up that triggers us. And then all of a sudden, bam, oh, I didn't even know that was in me. I didn't even know that I was harboring that denial, that energy for negative, for dark thinking. That's why you got to get out of your comfort zone. Go on a bus trip somewhere or find yourself for a few days in another place, another town, another situation where there's nothing familiar, and just see what happens. Think of it as a great experiment. See that beautiful circle of gold around you? This is a place dedicated to healing. This is your place, a sacred place. Here I place myself upon the altar. Here I place myself in God's hands. I carry this circle with me all throughout the day. And at any moment, I can simply stop and breathe, step into this circle again, and choose again for God. Choose again for love. Yes. That's good, Francois. Good. Push. Feel. As you get older in life, in physical life, as your body seems to age and things, more situations have happened to you, it becomes easier to become aware of just how heavy denial can be. When you're young, it seems the world is often your oyster and there's not too much to worry about. But as you go through life, you realize that everything here reflects death. All my hopes and dreams reflect death. It's like, Jesus, why the hell did you point that out to me? I was happy in my delusions. I was happy in my dream. I was happy in my ignorance. It's like, this world is not your home. I'm calling you home to where you are. I'm calling you to awaken. The journey is hard and steep, and there are few that you will find thereon. The gates to hell are wide, and there are many who go in there. You've been called and you've answered. This Zoom meeting, this course, this curriculum, it's all part of the answer. Stay true to it. Stay miracle-minded. You must refuse to listen to your own thoughts. I don't know what I'm going to listen to instead, but I'm just not going to listen to those old thoughts. I'm going to let something miraculous happen. I don't know what to listen to instead of my thoughts, but I'm just not going to listen to them. I'm going to let something else occur that is not of my own thinking. I'm going to let it be miraculous. Miracle-minded, miracle-minded. You have to adopt that as your mantra. Today, I'm going to be miracle-minded. I don't know what the hell, but I'm just going to let it be a miracle. Breathe. Look at that circle in your mind, that beautiful golden circle. It's entirely purposeful. The more time you spend there, the more comfortable you feel about giving your world to God, the more natural it feels to communicate with the Holy Spirit. It's prayerful. It's not a prayer that's really asking for anything that you don't already have. It's a prayer to know what you already have. Prayer to remember by relinquishing everything that gets in the way. Everything blocking and obscuring that memory. Everything of this world. Breathe. You heard me, Tina. I was just about to say it and you heard me. I love you guys.
I love you guys too. I just love you so much. Thank you.
There's only
Keep laughing.
we keep laughing. All of time and space, tiny mad I did it, which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. We just keep laughing.
And the world will end in laughter.
That's it. Hooray.
Kaboom.
Kaboom. What's happening, Anna? You good? That's good. She's good. Jesus is watching. He said, I'm watching. It's funny when you remember that this is already done already, and when you collapse the time of that, it really makes it so much more beautiful. It's like there's really nothing I need to be worried about. Not a thing. Like I'm just collapsing some time for a bit of time for my brother Jesus. It's lovely. I really do need to do nothing. I'm just going to sit in my circle and just let it all happen.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's it.
I just sit here. The Holy Spirit will do it. It's already done. And like the process seems to take a little bit of time, but in truth, no time is passing at all. All here and now. All right. Have a beautiful day. I'm going to hire a trailer. Lovely. Whatever that is. Have some honey, Tina. Have a bit of honey.
I look forward to it.
Have some honey on the teaspoon. Yep.
I have
some
agave. I don't think I have honey in the house. I have agave.
Isn't agave a cactus?
It is, but when you make it, it's real sweet, like honey. Can I use that?
No, this was honey. I just heard honey.
Honey, I'll go get some. I'll go to the market. Whatever you want, Jesus, I'll do it. Honey?
Maybe you just have to go to the market and see your friends.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. It's right around the corner, so I'll see if you're on the way. I'm gonna go get some honey. I'm excited. See what happens.
Right. Francois, anything? You all good? Francois is good. Anna's good. Yep. 2 thumbs up.
That's a
Thumbs
good
up.
camera. That's a good camera, Francois.
Yeah. That's nice.
I can finally see you out of the
Yep.
shadows.
Yeah, it was really dark there before. And now there's light.
Yes.
Great analogy. Oh. Anna's good. Wearing a hoodie. She's got a hoodie on. Trinity has not taken off that hoodie or the shirts or whatever, you know, like.
Oh, I should get her a hoodie.
She's totally two-packed out, everything. She's like, she gave one of her friends those buttons for the phone.
Oh, she did. Cool. I gave her 2. Yeah.
She has a friend who's two-pack mad as well, and pop. And also one of the T-shirts.
Yeah.
Disappeared. One of the T-shirts you gave her friend had another shirt similar.
Tell her I'm gonna tell her I'm gonna be one of the triplets.
Is that a phone you've got that on? Or is that
No, that's the button. No, I haven't taken it off. I haven't taken mine off yet.
Okay. And she swapped the T-shirt with her friends. It was a bit too tight for her, and her friends was bigger, so they.
Oh, sweet. Oh, cool.
Yeah. She's like over the moon with all that stuff.
Look forward to part 2.
Unless you guys have any questions or something, I think let's just be about our Father's business. Shining the light.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that. Totally. Or falling apart, one or the other. It's all good. Either falling apart or shining the light. One of the as long as it's, you know.
There's only the activity of God.
That's right. It's one or the other.
See,
I'm either falling apart to be of greater service, or I'm just being of service from the place that I've just fallen apart from.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I love you. Peace.
Love you.
Not leave meeting.
Leave meeting. Love you. Off to honey. Get some honey. We'll chat. Oh, I have to send you something. I'll do it later tonight. I have to go back to work in a minute after I get some honey.